I thought that when we came here, the hearing was the ensuring a secure, reliable, and modern electric system. And I thought by extension, we were going to be talking a lot more about the grid, and I've got more confused as I've heard all this discussion. It's much like, you know, I'm an engineer by training, but so by virtue of that, I suppose I can take on the lawyers in the room, because you ask 100 lawyers an opinion on something, you're going to get 100 different opinions. But so I'm curious. I've heard very professorial comments, very in-depth, your white papers that you've all developed about this topic. But I wonder whether or not we've been able to reach America with the story. Because we've been talking about source-agnostic architecture. We've even heard about balkanizing. We've heard about platforms. We've talked about polar vortexes. Mr. Cameron, you were about as close to talking to the American public as I've seen in this panel. One thing I've learned in Congress in my 4 years here, that we have trouble when we're confronted with more than one option. And I haven't heard the option. I've heard 7 or 8 different themes of where we should go. And I'm really trying to get to a point with the grid of what is, and the folks on the other side, they all keep talking about consensus, so I'll take their word. Is there a consensus of where we should go to develop grid reliability? Because what we've not talked about is the public's resistance. That was mine. The public doesn't want, don't put that high tension line over my property. Not my backyard. We haven't talked about electromagnetic pulse, the threat to our grid reliability with that, because we know that's a serious challenge. We've talked about the fact that we've had briefings, I don't think I'm breaching protocol here, but we can shut off someone else's grid in another country and they can shut off our grid because we have that capability. I haven't talked, there was just some mention slightly about the EPA regulations and shutting down some of our powerhouses, that when we had this polar vortex, that we're now leading to a point that we came within what I was told 700 megawatts of having a brownout last winter. That's really threatening. I don't know whether people across America understand. That's really just one powerhouse, 700 megawatts. And then the option of the age issue. I'd like for you to just explain in terms that we don't use here in the Beltway for Mildred Schmidt to understand. What does that have to do with it? Tell me a little bit more about the age, because we have water lines and sewer lines and buildings and roads and bridges that are far older than 25 years. Why should I be worried about electric grid? Why should I be worried about the electric power lines being 25 years old? So with that, I'd like to hear, is there a consensus of where we should go, where Congress should be putting its first priority in getting greater reliance or dependability, or are we just going to talk in abstract again?
Mr. Siebel.
Yes, sir. I think the 800-pound gorilla in the room here is the cybersecurity problem.
Yes.
Okay. Now, every now and then, I mean, and this is an opportunity where the federal government can play a role. Right. So every year or so, we get the word out of Washington that this is a priority. The fact of the matter is any hostile government, okay, any 10 smart engineers from UC Berkeley, okay, could bring down the grid from Boston to New York, in 4 days. And this system is entirely exposed. And if you bring in the leadership from Homeland Security, DHS, in here talking I think what they will say, and what I believe, before we really do something about this, we're going to have the equivalent of 9/11.